Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our webinar on the MRC Centres of Research Excellence. So this is a webinar for those intending to prepare applications for our Round 2 outline opportunity. I'm Dr Ceri Williams. I'm Head of Strategic Projects at MRC, and I'll be joined on the presentation this morning by Dr Sarah Collins, who's Head of Research Funding Operations at MRC. We will be joined later by several colleagues from head office who you can see on the screen who will be helping with the panel Q&A, and I'll introduce them when we get to that part of the webinar. So just to go over the agenda for the day, if we could move the slide on, please. Thank you. So we'll do some brief housekeeping in a moment, and then there will be a presentation from myself and Sarah covering an introduction to MRC CoRE as a mechanism, the Round 2 outline opportunity and how to apply using the funding service, and then we'll move to a panel Q&A. Thanks, Jess. In terms of housekeeping, the webinar is being recorded. That will be made available on the website after the fact, so no need to worry about taking too many notes. And we will also share the slide deck and a transcript of any Q&As that we receive. Thank you for those of you who might have submitted questions in advance. We have tried to address those in the content of the webinar, but please also feel free to ask questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screens. You'll have the chance to upvote other people's questions. So if somebody else has asked the question you were planning to ask, please do upvote it so that we can make sure we answer it during the session. For any questions that are not answered during the session, if we have lots of questions, we will try and provide answers in writing as part of the transcript as a follow-up. Thank you, Jess. So to begin with, I thought it'd be helpful to start with what is MRC CoRE, given this is a very new mechanism. This is the launch of Round 2. So this is a new mechanism for MRC, for Centres of Research Excellence, which is meant to be an agile, challenge-led funding model that addresses challenges across the spectrum of discovery to translational science. So we're very comfortable with these being anywhere along that spectrum. The model enables bold and innovative, disruptive, challenge-led science. It also promotes excellence in research culture, training and leadership, and supports interdisciplinary approaches and cross-sector partnerships. And bringing all of that together over a 14-year period with major long-term funding is what we're hoping will lead to transformational impact in the areas of these challenges. Thank you. So the key features, as I've mentioned, is that there's a mission to address a specific challenge using innovative, disruptive or interdisciplinary approaches. It's a 7+7 funding model. So that provides flexible long-term funding to undertake breakthrough collaborative team-based science. The typical budget will be 3 million per annum over each 7-year period. These are meant to be outward-facing and collaborative, so that gives the team the opportunity to be the international leaders in that area. They'll be led by a director, but as part of a leadership team, so fostering modern team-based approaches to leadership. They will provide stimulating training environments, and that's considering the range of people, skills and career paths that are required to deliver interdisciplinary science, and will also be beacons in fostering diverse and responsible research culture. So those things are really important to us in this mechanism. They can be hosted by a single eligible organisation or a partnership, and I'll come back to that with a bit more detail later. And the aim is that these investments will act as a nucleus around the challenge area, and that growth and sustainability will be achieved through additional aligned competitive grants or fellowships. Can we move on? Thank you. So MRC CoRE challenges. I thought it would be helpful to talk a little bit about what we mean by a challenge, because this is quite a new mechanism for MRC. So our Major Investments Board, which has overseen the rollout of this mechanism, are keen to see really bold, ambitious and innovative proposals and challenges put forward. You should really be looking to address a gap, opportunity, or so far intractable obstacle in understanding or modifying human health and disease. So we're really looking for you to try and address true barriers. They should be composed of major strategic objectives, which all align and deliver against that core mission for the challenge and are achievable within the 14-year timeframe. You don't have to have solved the whole challenge by the end, but you do have to have made substantial progress and make a strong argument for why you will transform the area if you address that challenge in the way that you propose. They have to be aligned to the MRC mission, and it has to be very clear that they do require flexible and major long-term funding. So we're not looking for a collection of programme grants that happen to hang together under a looser mission. We want something very clearly coordinated that hangs together to become more than the sum of its parts. We can move on, please. So these challenges will be achieved through distinct and disruptive research that provides breakthrough advances. I think we've covered that quite a lot already, addressing bottlenecks through knowledge generation, technological or methodological innovation. They should provide a stimulating environment to train the next generation. So we're really looking for them to be leaders in that field and look at what's required to support that field more broadly. Fostering outward facing approaches for innovation and engagement, so really leading in that area. Bringing together creative and diverse approaches for cross-sectoral and multi or interdisciplinary working. So we are looking for you to bring together all of the right people to tackle that challenge in a coordinated and coherent way. And we're looking for these investments to harness the best talent in the UK to deliver upon the proposed vision, wherever that may be. We are also, as I said, we very strongly want these investments to deliver excellence in research culture, and also to strongly consider things like equality, diversity and inclusion in the leadership models and in the way that the investment is run and operated on a daily basis. Thank you. In terms of leadership, MRC CoREs are an opportunity to do leadership slightly differently, so fostering that team-based approach to leadership. They will be led by a director, but we would like them to be supported by an executive leadership team. The leadership environment must have inclusive and creative approaches that promote a positive research culture. The leadership team should have clear roles and responsibilities. We are very open to any model of leadership that's appropriate for both the structure of your core in terms of the HEIs or organisations involved, but also the science that you intend to tackle. So we don't have a particular leadership model in mind. It's up to you to make the case for what's right for your proposed core. And we would like the leadership to be diverse, both in terms of expertise, but also in career stage and ED&I protected characteristics. And we would like you to foster an environment which actively supports career development and mentoring to create those future leaders in the field. So thinking about how that's going to progress over the 14 years is really important in your approach to leadership. In terms of membership of the leadership team, that can include members from a single organisation or partnership of organisations, including international co-leads. And it should reflect the leadership required for the delivery of the challenge scientifically and the research environment, and then also management across multiple sites and partnerships, if that's applicable to your particular proposal. We move on. Research culture, as I think I've mentioned already, we would like MRC CoREs to adopt the highest standards in the way that research is conducted, openly communicated, and also develop and nurture the career paths and training environment which support that positive research culture across all aspects. Obviously, there are several MRC and UKRI policies, as well as cross-sector concordats and statements that emphasise the key principles that are involved in positive research culture. We would like applicants to consider this from this perspective of what is the HEI or HEIs doing already at the local level, at the HEI level, and how do you align with that? But then also, what might you additionally do locally within your core, which will support positive research culture and establish that particularly within your investment and the lifespan of that. Thank you. In terms of training and careers, MRC CoREs are expected to build capacity in their specialist area. We are looking for you to establish a training environment that equips researchers with the tools they need to carry out world-leading research and to effectively transition between career stages. So this is about making sure that you've got meaningful support and recognition for the range of people, skills and career pathways that are required to deliver against the challenge. Funding can be used for training and capacity building where it's required to address the research challenge, but it should be noted that this is only where it cannot be addressed through conventional and existing training and career-focused funding routes. Aside from that, you can request doctoral training studentships as part of MRC CoRE, and more information on that is available in the outline opportunity on Funding Finder. Thanks, Jess. In terms of environmental sustainability, our strategic investments are expected to consider and promote environmental sustainability in their practices. In the first instance, that means awards should aim to comply with the greening government commitments of 21 to 25. And just to make you aware that you will be expected to report to UKRI and or MRC on the progress of these activities. Again, I would encourage you to link in with what's happening at the HEI level across your individual or partnership of HEIs, but also to consider what the CoRE might do additionally in a local way that will contribute to environmental sustainability. Thank you. So coming on to specifically the round 2 opportunity. So here you can see the timeline. The outline opportunity launched in September. The outline application deadline is the 7th of February 2024. The panel meeting, we don't yet have a date, but it's likely to be in April. The full opportunity then will open towards the end of May with a full application deadline in September, followed by full application peer review assessment and then interviews and informed of full decisions around March 2025. So it is a very long timeline, I'm afraid, but that's reflective of the major nature of these investments and the 2-stage application process. In terms of the round 2 themes, you'll have seen we've published 3 themes for this round. They are enhancing health span, immune regulation, and molecular mechanisms to inform cancer intervention. Outside of these themes, we will exceptionally consider compelling time-sensitive ideas that are aligned to the strategic delivery plan. This is very much by exception, and you must contact the office to discuss this if you intend to submit outside of a theme so that we can advise you on whether that's suitably compelling and considered time-sensitive. Thank you. So challenges can address all or part of MRC's remit of discovery, understanding mechanism and development concepts of it or interventions. You don't have to be all-encompassing. A CoRE should address a specific and defined challenge, which, if successful, will have demonstrable and significant impact. We do not expect a single CoRE to address the entirety of a challenge of a field of science. So it's really about addressing what's the particular challenge within a field that you're going to provide transformational impact on. And if you're not sure about the pitching of that, you can contact the office for advice, and we can give you some advice before you develop your outline proposal too far. And challenges can focus on a single theme, or they can be relevant to more than one theme. So you can have proposals that sit across challenges. So we'll go on to some more detail about the particular themes now. Thanks, Jess. So in terms of enhancing health span, this is about building on UK strengths in mechanistic biology and longitudinal population studies. This theme seeks to connect people and ideas and move from mechanistic understanding to tractable interventions that can eventually be deployed in the home, the community, or in care settings to compress the time spent in ill health in later life. And the slides, by the way, I should have mentioned, these are just the bullets that are published on Funding Finder. So I'm not reading the stuff directly because you can read that yourself. While health inequality is a major driver of poor health in later life, and plans for understanding, improving health equity must be embedded in your proposed research. You should note that understanding health inequality should not be the sole focus of an application in this theme. And there are some examples on the text in the Funding Finder opportunity that we've published of example areas where we could envisage a CoRE under these themes, but just to re-emphasise through all of these themes that they are just exemplar areas. We don't expect proposals to address just the bullets or the bullets in their entirety. They are just examples to provide some food for thought and inspiration of potential areas where you could position a CoRE. Thanks, Jess. In terms of immune regulation, whilst all immune reactions are internally regulated, work seeking to solely investigate immunology via, for example, elucidating immune responses to a pathogen challenge would not be in scope. So understanding the basic normal functioning of the immune system is not in scope here. What we're looking to understand is if the immune system is challenged, how do we then address that? So we're looking to enable transformative breakthroughs to understand how our long-term immune health is shaped and controlled by our wider environment. And again, there are some illustrative examples on the funding finder text for this challenge. Thank you. For molecular mechanisms to inform cancer intervention, this theme is intended to address significant cancer challenges that remain outstanding and will need to be addressed to deliver necessary transformative improvements in patient diagnosis, care, and outcomes. The CoRE model offers a unique opportunity to coordinate across the entire cancer research community and the breadth of MRC's remit to deliver innovative and disruptive research towards mechanism-informed prevention and intervention. But what you should note here is that early detection is not expected to be a sole focus, and that's because we've got significant investments and mechanisms to address that in other areas. Thank you, Jess. So we thought it would be helpful to share some learnings with you from the round one outline stage. So we had 28 applications to the outline of round one and 9 were shortlisted for the full stage. And some of the key things that we noticed across those applications and feedback we collected from the panel and from the Major Investments Board was that the critical things in those outlines were that there was a lack of a defined challenge. So we've tried to give you a lot more information about what we mean by a challenge and how we want you to approach that in this webinar and on our content in the outline opportunity on Funding Finder. Also a lack of cohesiveness and a defined kind of lack of added value. So why does it need a core? Why does it need major long-term funding? So a bit more detail around that. We noted in some applications that the vision was too broad, and this relates back to the comment I made earlier about we don't expect a single core to address the challenge, if you like, of a whole field of science. We want you to address a defined challenge and provide a clear cohesion between your proposed research themes or work packages. We also saw in some instances that research was a direct extension of what was already taking place. And obviously that will be the case because research will build on what's gone before, but what wasn't evident was what was the transformational difference, what was the leap that was going to really make a difference and lead to big impact in the area. The added value of the MRC CoRE as a structure was not articulated. So why does it need MRC CoRE funding rather than, for example, a collection of successive smaller proposals that build incrementally? The CoRE was too inward looking. What we meant there is that although we haven't specified whether a CoRE should be based around a single research organisation or a collection, and indeed we're happy to look at both, it does very much depend on the science and what's required to deliver the challenge. However, what we do expect the CoREs to be is outward facing and internationally leading. And so it's about harnessing the best talent in the UK to deliver upon the proposed vision and being well networked with national and global partners that are relevant to the topic of your challenge. So that's what we mean by things were too inward looking, that they hadn't really considered how they were going to harness other relevant experts, but also to be the national and arguably international leader in that area. Limitations, challenges and risks were not always sufficiently identified or covered. There were often weak and generic statements on research culture, EDI, training and sustainability. The office is here to support you with those aspects if you need advice on how to fill in, for example, the research culture section. We're very happy to talk to you about your approaches in those areas. Please do get in touch. Insufficient details on governance and leadership structure and approaches. So you'll have seen that, we're very keen for things to be well managed across a leadership team. And so it's really important that you articulate your approach to that and how that will be managed. And then a key thing that we saw across many applications was that the resume for researchers focused on a list of individual contributions rather than really putting thought into that collective capability and what that particular team was bringing together and that uniqueness as it applied to the challenge. So it's really important that you think that through. Thanks, Jess. In terms of the funding available at the outline stage, you have to provide outline costs for the first 7 years. The full economic costing of your first 7 years can be up to 26.5 million. Also to note that you do have flexibility to change costs between the outline and the full stage. So just to reassure you of that, what we're really looking for is a good idea of how you would allocate costings across the initial 7 years. We will fund 80% of the full economic costings and 100% of the permitted exceptions. And as per usual with MRC, we'll provide all the awarded funding to the lead organisation to manage and distribute. Awards spanning multiple organisations must have plans to ensure the funds can be used flexibly to support changes in research delivery and opportunity across the course of the award. Obviously, we recognise that these are 14-year investments and things change and priorities change and research often goes in avenues that you hadn't anticipated. You will have the flexibility and we want you to be able to adapt and react to those changes. And so the plans in terms of how you govern and manage it also need to align with that ethos of flexibility and adaptability. The full list of costs that you can request are on the outline opportunity page on Funding Finder. Thank you, Jess. So project leads and co-leads must be employed by an eligible organisation, and they must have the relevant expertise and experience to lead or contribute to an MRC CoRE and its culture. As I mentioned earlier, international investigators can be a project co-lead, and they can also be part of the leadership team where appropriate, but they must offer expertise and/or facilities that are not available in the UK, and their institutions must provide clear indicators of commitment to the investment. We expect, as I've mentioned, research and management teams to be diverse in terms of expertise and inclusion of those at different career stages and with different protected characteristics. Partnerships can be from single eligible organisations or a partnership of organisations. And in addition to the arrangements for management of funding and flexibility of funding across the organisation, we obviously expect partnership applications to have clear plans for governance and management across the investment. Thank you. Considerable and clearly defined support from the research organisations is essential. We've given some examples here of particular things that research organisations could commit to MRC CoREs. We don't specify what exactly we want them to submit. As part of the application process, the host research organisation statement will need to provide a statement of support, and for joint partnership applications that will have to be a joint statement. What we're really interested in understanding actually is how are they going to support this strategically and how does it align to the local strategy of the HEI or combination of HEIs. So why is this important and how does it actually fit in with that broader perspective of the HEI in that landscape? Important to note that an organisation can lead up to 3 outline applications in round 2, 1 in each theme. And also to note that applications from existing MRC units who are looking to transition into the core model can be submitted in addition to those limits. So those unit applications don't count towards the 3 applications limit guidance. Thanks, Jeff. I'm now handing to my colleague Sarah Collins to go through the applying and funding service section.
Good morning, everyone. So moving on now to talk about the practicalities of applying for the MRC CoRE outline opportunity. So in round 2, we'll be using the new UKRI funding service for the outline applications and emphasising that you must use this new funding service and you can no longer apply for the MRC CoRE outline using the JES system. There are increasing resources available on the UKRI website about the new funding service and how you can use it. So there's a number of short video demonstrations, including how as an applicant you complete an application in the funding service. And of course, you can find all of the application guidance, questions and word counts about how you complete an MRC CoRE outline application on our website in the funding finder pages that have already been referred to. And that funding finder is where you go to start an application. At the very top of that page on the funding finder, you'll see a button, Start the Application, and that will take you through to the new UCARI funding service. This funding service, or TFS as I may refer to it, is under continuous development, and how you apply for this opportunity may be different to other opportunities you might have worked on in the new funding service. So please do follow the specific round 2 guidance for the MRC CoRE. Next slide, please, Jess. Just a few tips about using the new funding service. The application should be created by the project lead rather than any other member of the team or by the research office, and emphasising at this point in time that only the project lead can edit the application. This is an evolving area, and I expect during the course of the time that this funding opportunity is open, that the research office will gain access to be able to edit the applications, but that's something that's likely to come online during this month and the next month. So that's something to watch out for, and will be a benefit to applicants in order to receive more support from their research office before we come to our closing date in February. If you don't already have a funding service account, you will need to register for one. It's not the same as the JES accounts that you might have had previously. And by going to that Start Application link in the funding finder, if you haven't already got an account, that's the route that you need to follow to set one up. If you are the project lead applicant, you do need to complete your EDI profile in the funding service, as you can't submit your application without having done that. But obviously you can choose to not declare information, but you do need to actively go into that section and either complete information or choose not to disclose it. As soon as you start your application, the Research Office Administrator will have visibility of it, but as I say, emphasise at the moment they cannot help you edit it. As we move closer towards that closing date in February, please be aware that your Research Office Administrator will need time to approve the application before it ultimately is submitted to us, so please allow for this in your planning. Next slide, please, Jess. So focusing a bit more on the MRC CoRE application specifically, in the new funding service, this application has 18 sections. And that may seem like quite a few sections, but this is reflecting the guidance we've had from the first round of applications. And it really is to encourage you to complete all the different types of information that we need in order to get a full picture of the quality of your proposal for an MRC CoRE, and really address all those really diverse aspects, including the challenge, the research, but importantly also aspects like the research culture, leadership and environmental sustainability. All of those sections require you to complete a text box response for the application, and there are no documents for you to upload to this MRC CoRE outline application. The word counts for the section or question vary, and they range from very short responses that we need, around 100 words, up to the biggest section being 2,000 words for you to complete for your application. As already emphasised by Ceri, in this application, what we're looking for is the real compelling case for the MRC CoRE, rather than lots of specific detail at the outline stage. The detail is what will come if you're invited to complete a full application, but we want the persuasive arguments in a very persuasive format in this outline application. When you're preparing your application, you can include images in certain sections of that where it's indicated in the funding service, if it's helpful for you to represent your case visually. There is a section that asks you to complete who the core team of applicants are. And at this outline stage, we are asking you that those core team should be the proposed leadership team for the MRC CoRE. You can bring in further applicants and staff at the full application stage, but we really want at the outline stage to see that leadership team represented. As well as naming the leadership team, we ask you to include in your application evidence of the leadership team's capability to deliver. And as mentioned by Ceri, that is provided in a team resume for research information in innovation format within this application, where we're really hoping to see an integrated case for why the leadership team is capable of delivering this MRC CoRE. We don't need too much cost information at this outline stage. It's really just the high-level indicators that we're asking for at this stage of the application, and those can be modified as you move to the full stage. So if you move on, Jess, I've just got a couple of screenshots to show you what the application looks like when you're in the UKRI funding service. So this is what you would first see as you start an application with none of the information yet completed. But you can see on the left-hand side the sections that I mentioned of the application, which you're able to click through and, as I say, complete the details required in each of these by adding information into the text boxes. For each of the questions, you are also able to expand the view application question text, which gives you the same information as you would find on the UKRI funding finder in terms of what we want to see in response to that question. And finally, Jess, if you move on, just to show you the sort of high-level costing information that I was indicating at this outline stage, it is literally just those fund heading level summary costs that we are requiring you to complete. There's under that, there's a section asking for a little bit more detail about your equipment costs, and that's because we have a particular focus on that aspects of the costs in this application. Next slide, please. So as you work through preparing a core outline application, there are various sources of help available, but we do emphasize that once you have decided to submit the application, you cannot then change it or ask for it to be returned to you to be updated. So please make sure you ask before submitting if you're unsure, I say, because we cannot then go back and fix anything once that submit button has been pressed. Your host organisation will be able to provide advice and guidance to assist you. But for all other general questions on the MRC course and completing an application, please contact MRC at the core email address given there. The only other time is if you have a particular technical question about the new funding service and any technical issues you might be experiencing, then please contact the UKRI Funding Service Help Desk either by email or by phone. Next slide, please, Jess. So just moving on from the application stage, then we will then move into the assessment stage for the round 2 applications that we receive. And that assessment will be by an assessment panel that will decide which of the outline applications should be invited to prepare a full application. And that assessment panel will be made up of both major investment board members, representatives from MRC boards and panels in the themes of interest, and supplemented by international panelists also with expertise in the particular themes for round 2. The outline applications have to really demonstrate the excitement of the challenge and the potential to fully meet all of the criteria in order to be invited to prepare a full application. The assessment criteria are shown here and are grouped into 4 areas, and they directly reflect the sections of the application that you're being asked to prepare. So there's the sections that you prepare of your application demonstrating the value and the importance of your challenge, which we'll be assessing, both its importance, its innovation, its impact. We have sections of the outline asking you to set out your outline approach to the challenge, which includes the approach to research, approach to translation and knowledge transfer, and environmental sustainability. Large focus on the core's environment, as already emphasised, that training, research culture and leadership. Again, there are sections of the application that ask you to demonstrate each of those. And finally, sections of the application that the panel will be looking at where you've given evidence of your capability to deliver, both as the leadership team and the research organisations supporting you and the partnerships and collaborators that you're hoping to bring in. So there's a direct link between how the application is set up, how we want you to prepare it, and the assessment that we're going to be doing in order to decide which applications will go through to the full stage. So that's the end of my presentation, and back over to Ceri and Jess to run the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So we'll be joined on screen by a few colleagues from head office. So we obviously already have Sarah, head of funding operations. We also have in the room with me here Steve Oakeshott, who's head of theme for infections and immunity, and then Catherine Whitmore, who's the programme manager for cancer cell biology and haematology, and Jess Bonham, who's the head of research on ageing and multimorbidity. So any questions on the scientific themes will be channeled to colleagues as appropriate. So Jess, do you want to kick us off with the Q&A, please?
Yep, sure, thank you. So the first question is, what do you mean by outward facing? What could that look like?
So I think I covered this later on in the presentation. So we're really looking for these investments to be well networked across the landscape, both nationally and internationally. So in terms of making sure that that doesn't necessarily mean all of those partners need to be involved and funded through the core, but it's about being appropriately networked so that the impact and the reach of the science gets out to the right places and brings the field with you.
Thank you. Next question. I am not sure about the extension of what is taking place / incremental / should build on and harness existing infrastructures versus transformative leap requirement. Are they not mutually exclusive? Can you provide an example?
So I think the point here is that the Major Investments Board are looking for core proposals to put forward something that proposes to do things slightly differently. So they don't want to see a traditional kind of extension of existing programs, although we acknowledge that in many cases you'll need to provide a convincing case for why you have the expertise and the track record and the ability to deliver what you say you can deliver in your proposal. So it's about striking that right balance. The board doesn't see them as mutually exclusive necessarily, but what they do want to see is the added value of bringing together that particular team, and also why your approach is slightly different and is going to cause a transformational change within the field. I'd love to be able to point to an example, but we haven't awarded any cores yet, so it's a little bit tricky for us to point to a specific core related example, I'm afraid.
Can you say more on your definition of disruptive, please? And do you have any historical examples of what could have been considered disruptive health research?
So again, in round one, the core panel commented on some outlines submitting kind of extensions or expansions on existing research capability and streams. So instead of adding value by bringing together a bespoke team for that challenge, they were tackling something that was perceived to be already occurring within the field. And we're really looking for something novel and disruptive in this core mechanism. So I think that's a key thing. I would like to actually open the part of the question around examples of disruptive science to my three colleagues in the theme areas, because I think that's quite relevant for the themes under consideration, although I would note that we have provided some potential exemplar areas within the funding finder text as well. But Jessica, I can see that you've got your hand up.
Well, just in terms of historical research, the identification of Yamanaka factors is pretty critical in being able to get at the pluripotent stem cells. So that's an example of a disruptive change that has pushed the field forward. TOR as a regulator of lifespan, calorie restriction as another regulator. Those are examples of things that have produced transformational change in the field.
Anybody else want to contribute? Feel free.
I mean, I think it generally ties into the overall ambition of the core, right? So, you know, what we're looking for are the types of things that they don't look like the type where you could get funded through a standard research grant. Yeah. So what we mean by disruptive is, you know, you're addressing a sort of a question that's sufficiently challenging that it might be something you wouldn't want to put in as a grant because you probably wouldn't be funded because you wouldn't be able to deliver it. So we would hope that these types of large-scale, long-term investments would deliver really substantial new insights and changes that will disrupt our current understanding of the field. So, our board talk about the sort of initial research into the microbiome, and that I think is a sort of useful example because it wasn't something that was previously well understood to have the type of wide-ranging impact that it does. And like that initial step into investigating something that maybe you've got some exciting evidence and maybe it looks a bit different, but doesn't fit in with the sort of normal body of existing research. So I think that's broadly what we're getting at.
Thank you. Please can you say more about R4RI and what MRC wants to see? We're finding that it's something academics are struggling with across funding opportunities, and we are receiving feedback on what funders don't want or like, but less on what they do.
Sarah, do you want to pick that up, or I can jump in?
Well, I think it would be good for you to comment, Ceri, on the specifics for MRC CoRE and what you want to see in the team capability to deliver. But in terms of generally in the resume for research in innovation, we want to see the most pertinent evidence and examples being selected from across the team of individuals involved in an application, rather than a list of absolutely everything. We want to see diverse examples beyond the traditional examples of contribution, skills and experience. We want to see creativity and use of the format, to be perfectly honest. And in terms of not providing what we want to see specifically, there's been a lack of desire to show, templates or formats, because we want you to think and use it as you need to, rather than necessarily following a one particular example that we might be able to produce for you. Is there anything you'd like to add for MRC CoRE? Ceri?
Yeah, I think we covered it mostly in the presentation, but the key learning on the ones in the round one outline was that we had some very good examples where people had put careful thought into exactly what Sarah said there. So particular pertinent examples of expertise and how that is being brought together in the team. So not just a list of each individual's things, but how that actually hangs together, and then also how that's relevant to the challenge that you're proposing to tackle. So I think it's just about very much making it relevant to your proposal and the team that you are establishing in the local kind of environment there.
Thank you. So next question, will TFS eventually allow other applicants, not just the project lead, to edit? For a recent MRC grant application, we found TFS much less user-friendly than JES because of the inability for other applications to edit the application.
Let's answer that one, Jess, and there's a similar question directly after us saying important that others can edit and submit, especially in examples where the lead may be ill or other types of circumstances. To reassure you that absolutely yes, co-editing between the applicants, not just with the research office, is on the development plan for the funding service. It will not be in live environment by the time these applications are submitted for the Centres of Research Excellence round 2, but I would expect it to be a feature we have by round 3.
Next question. Is there a limit on how many individuals can be in the leadership team?
No, not formally, although you do need to make sure that it's workable. So in general, you'll see in Funding Finder that somebody is required to be the PI in the system, if you like. That is for administrative purposes. We would like you to have a director as part of your leadership team. There needs to be somebody who is the nominated person with the responsibility for the award. In the leadership team, we would expect anyone who's leading a major strand of work to be part of that leadership team, but you might also want to consider leads for things like training, culture, and other aspects that are more cross-cutting within your leadership team as well. And obviously individuals can hold more than one of those areas of expertise depending on their personal interests and their science background as well.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question. Can you say more about any additional criteria for selection taken into account, e.g. track record of MRC funding, preliminary data towards the challenge, evidence of previous joint working?
So there are no additional criteria. The assessment criteria are published, and those are the assessment criteria that will be used. Also, just to address, there's a couple of questions asking about weighting of criteria relative to each other. There's no weighting of the criteria. They are all equally important and will be considered as a whole when the panel is considering the applications.
Thank you. Is there a limit on how much the cost submitted in full application can differ from the outline?
You want me to answer that one? There is no formal limit. We obviously have an upper cap on the cost that you can submit. So as long as you are remaining within the maximum, you can vary costs however much you wish to between the outline and the full stage.
Thank you. Next question. I completely understand that the focus should not be on early detection in the cancer call, but can it be focused on early stages of primary cancer?
In short, yes, one of our example priority areas is looking at mechanistic understanding and intervention in tumour initiation. So this will cover primary tumours, but I do want to emphasise that the focus shouldn't be on early detection. And this comes back to the discussion we were having about disruptive research. So given the other stakeholders in the cancer landscape, it's important to consider how a proposal that does include an element of early detection, we do expect that it may come through in some of our other themes, but how is this novel and disruptive and not just a continuation of what already exists elsewhere?
Great, thank you. Last time only 9 out of 26 were taken forward from outline to full. Would you expect a similar number to be taken forward this time, or was that purely based on the quality of what was received at outline?
It was based on the quality of what was received at outline. We don't have a specific number in mind for shortlisting. MIB have and the panel have full flexibility in what they wish to shortlist. What I would note is that it could be fewer or it could be higher. If it were higher, then we do also reserve the right to have a triage step in the full application timeline. We haven't needed to do that for round one because there were sufficiently few applications to be able to interview every applicant team. However, if MIB decided to shortlist a higher number of applicants in round two, then it's possible that we would invite you to prepare a full application, have that peer reviewed and have the PI response, and then have a triage to decide who is going to be interviewed at the final stage. So just to be clear about that.
Thank you. Please can you elaborate on how a doctoral training programme may or may not fit into a core application?
Yeah, so it's not necessarily a doctoral training programme per se. So you can request studentships as part of core applications. I believe we indicate up to 2 per year, so 14 studentships over the course of the whole, 28 over the course of the whole core and 14 within the first 7 years. They must be docked into an existing doctoral training partnership, whether that's an MRC funded one or one that's funded by one of our sister UKRI councils. So they have to, the support for those studentships and the recruitment processes and everything must be in line with our existing practices, and that's why we're mandating they must come through an existing doctoral training partnership. So you have to get the support of your DTP as part of your full stage application. So I would advise you to speak to them early.
Thank you. The outline application includes a table to list the project partners and their contributions. Will outlines be seen as too inward facing if they have not confirmed project partners at outline stage, or is a description of how the core will engage new partners sufficient at this stage?
I think we acknowledge that it's not possible to have every detail lined up for an outline stage application, and that's why it is an outline. However, I think it would be an indication of the kinds of partners that you would expect to be on board with your application, and perhaps an indication of preliminary discussions that may have taken place. Given that we're only in November and the deadline is in February, you've definitely got time to approach people, even if they haven't necessarily signed up and allowed you to put their names in. So I think it's about articulation of your approach and giving details where you're able to.
Thanks. Next question. To what extent is engagement with lived experience partners in the design, development and delivery of the research expected?
Jessica, is this one you can pick up?
Yeah, so UKRI and MRC are moving towards inclusion of people with lived experience in the generation of ideas and in the delivery of research. So I think if you can make a strong case for how you're engaging with people with lived experience and how that will help ensure the translation or make translation of outcomes more acceptable to people with lived experience, then I think there's a strong case for it.
Thank you. In the cancer theme, is there interest in early prevention as a focus instead of early detection?
Yes, so if we think about the scope of this theme, it is improving our integrated understanding of cancer biology to inform cancer intervention. So cancer prevention and early detection are mechanisms of cancer intervention. But again, I would encourage people to think about how a proposal would be suitable for a core mechanism. So what is novel and what is disruptive? And think about maybe looking across traditional disciplines or different ways to approach things that are already being done in the cancer space.
Great, thank you. We're down to our last question. Can you please clarify what you mean when we talk about environmental sustainability, especially for a mechanistic programme?
Do you want me to take that one, Ceri?
Please.
We want you to think about the entire operation of your MRC CoRE. So you may not feel that you have direct impacts in terms of large emissions, but as a research organisation, as a site, you will have electricity, you will have water, you will have waste. These are the sorts of things that probably will be managed at a research organisation level, but we need to think about how your core integrates within that and how any impacts or improvements you can make to the environmental sustainability of your research. MRC has been looking quite a lot into the environmental impact of lab practices and particularly in the waste area. So this would be an area to focus on regardless of the type of research that you're actually going to be undertaking in the MRC CoRE.
Thanks. We've had another question come in. Can you clarify this statement on the website? A cancer MRC CoRE will likely prioritise cancers with unknown pathogenesis, poor outcomes and limited treatment options. How fixed is that, and are there specific cancers that are being thought of here?
Yes, so we expect a core not just to focus on one cancer, we expect it to be inclusive of multiple cancer types. And in considering what cancer types you may be focusing on, we would encourage you to think about, again, the novel disruptive research that a core mechanism can support. So why are you choosing those cancer types and what is already being done out there? In considering this, you may wish to prioritise cancer types that we know we don't understand them, there's less known about the pathogenic mechanisms, they're harder to treat and the outcomes are poorer. So that may be something you wish to consider when you're thinking about what cancer types you may be focusing on in your cancer core.
Great, thank you. That's all the questions at the moment, unless anyone's typing furiously. That's it.
We'll just give it a few seconds. So just to reiterate, the MRC head office team is here to support you with your proposals. Please do get in touch if you'd like to discuss your outline idea before submission. The inbox is core, C-O-R-E, at mrc.ukri.org. The team is here to answer your queries, so we can talk to you generically about whether your idea is a good fit for a core, and we can also bring in our colleagues from across the subject-specific areas to advise on a particular scientific positioning of your idea before submission. The webinar has been recorded and will be made available as soon as we can. We need to do the captioning for those who require that accessibility, and we also will type up the Q&A or provide a transcript alongside, so you can watch this back and or share with colleagues who may not have been able to make it. There haven't been any more questions whilst I've been speaking, so I'll assume that we've got to the bottom of all your immediate queries. Please do get in touch if you have any follow-ups. And thank you very much. Thank you very much to the panel for contributing.
There is one more question that's just popped in, and we have a few minutes, I guess. Can you confirm?
Yeah, of course. So the interview details for round 1 will be confirmed in the next 2 weeks. So we are just working on the final guidance in terms of what you need to do for your interview and the presentation, and that will be shared with you very shortly. Thank you very much, everybody.